I don't have enough time this morning to tell you everything that you already know. Some of the things that have already happened or you already know over the last couple of days since we joined together on the first and second days of Pesach. USC, commencement canceled. UCLA, Liberation Camp expanding as we speak. Loyola Law School, April 16th. Jewish law students interrupted by an anti-Semitic tirade. And for a few moments about my alma mater, Columbia University. And my alma mater at Columbia University, where it came just out yesterday, the head of the CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid Divestment Group, the student that's in charge of that, in fact, in January, had a disciplinary hearing that is now fully online, 56 minutes. I had the honor of watching that yesterday. And he said this, I quote, "Zionists do not deserve to live," followed by, "I fight to kill." Late yesterday, when this video was released, and when I say it's worse than you believe, it's worse than you believe. Because if you watch more than just a soundbite, you also hear the student sentiments that, of course, the world rejoiced when Hitler died. And so this world would also be better without Zionists too. The student went on as saying, I quote, "What is a Zionist? A white supremacist. People who hold those types of ideologies, the world is better without them." This from a group whose demands on their website, with their encampment now growing, an immediate ceasefire, divesting from companies working with Israel, severing its ties with Tel Aviv University, a reinstatement of two groups that were already banned from campus, the Students for Justice of Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace. This is not one student, but those demands are signed by 94 student and faculty groups. Not one demand of a return of a hostage, not one apology for October 7th. Instead, as you saw outside of the gates of Columbia University, chants, I quote, "We are Hamas." 56-minute video. But yesterday I also watched another 56-minute video that was released on YouTube by Sheryl Sandberg. It's called Screams Before Silence. It's a heart-wrenching, I don't even know if you can call it a documentary, but a video that bears witness as Sandberg interviewed and went to places like Kfar Aza and the kibbutzim with hostages that were taken from there and released, and they go back home for the first time. She follows Nova Festival survivors. It's too graphic to describe from a bima. And she also interviews Zaka workers. Zaka is the organization that is responsible after terrorist activities to collect literally body parts and drops of blood to make sure that they are given proper Jewish burial. When you watch these liberation camps and they're watching movies at night, maybe for 56 minutes they should be watching this film to see what happened on that day. And finally, a Newsweek column that came out yesterday by Hamza Hawadi. He was a Palestinian that grew up in Gaza City, born in the 90s, and he left Gaza just a couple of months before October 7th. And he wrote what he sees on the college campus as a Gazan himself. He says, I quote, "My family home was destroyed in Gaza, and too many have been killed there. I never thought, though, I would find myself criticizing those speaking up, and yet I cannot be silent about what I am seeing." He continues, "You know what would help the Palestinians in Gaza," he says? "How about condemning Hamas atrocities? Instead, the protesters that he watches globalize the Intifada." And then he asks, "Where were they? Where were they when my people were held captive by Hamas 17 years ago?" I'm not a journalist, and so you might be asking, "Rabbi, where's the Torah?" And so a piece of Torah on these confusing days. This morning we have read from the Pesach Shabbat Chol HaMoed, not our regular parasha, but we read of the people of Israel searching for a divine presence. And the rabbis choose for this Shabbat, right after we have our Passover seders, our liberation meal, right after we have our exodus from Egypt and freedom, we have the part of the Torah of the delivery of the second tablets. Already we have gone through a challenge of leadership, a challenge of faith, and the Torah tells us, "V'ra'ita et achorai ufanai lo yera'u." The Torah tells us, or God tells the people, you will see the back of me. You will see the back of my face, and the front you will not see. It was fascinating as the men's club leadership lined up for Lador Vador, they didn't face you, but they faced the ark and we saw their backs. And the rabbis ask, well, what does it mean to see God's back or the back of the face? And there's two responses. The first, Rashi says that we saw the back knot of God's tefillin. Yes, God wears tefillin too. And it was just the back knot that we were looking at. But Sforno, the 16th century Italian commentator, says that when we're looking at the back of God's face, it tells us that we cannot translate God's thoughts into concrete actions. We don't know what's happening. How true today. When we look at events that are happening on our college campuses, in our cities, in our schools, in our workplaces around the world, it literally is hard to fathom into concrete action what is happening and what it means. But then you look at the Haftarah that Jason Kahan chanted so beautifully from the book of Ezekiel, and it's the valley of the dry bones. The Jewish people see this valley of the dry bones and they said, we're done. They use the words, Ovda tikvatenu, our hope is lost. And yet, when we sing our Hatikva, our national anthem of the Jewish people, what do we say? Lo Ovda tikvatenu. The author of the Hatikva adds the words lo, not the valley of the dry bones that our hope was lost, but rather, Od lo ovda tikvatenu, our hope will not be lost. That is the message of the dry bones. There's no sugarcoating of what's happening. But we must, and we can find these Ezekiel dry bones moments that will inspire us deep enough to not just listen to me, but to finally do something. And so a few moments of Ezekiel moments this week that I have seen, that we have witnessed, that we have participated in, that I hope will inspire you to also do the same in the coming days and weeks and months. On Sunday, as we saw what was happening at Columbia University, our Sinai Temple Israel Center connected with the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition, a group of rabbis from around the country, all denominations, as well as Eagle's Wings Ministry, Bishop Robert Stearns out of Buffalo, New York. Bishop Stearns sends hundreds of pastors to Israel each and every year to see for themselves the beauty of the land, to get baptized in the Jordan River, to see where their tradition also comes from. And when I asked Bishop, I said, let's put something out and send to the Columbia University Board of Trustees within 24 hours 500 pastors and rabbis from around this country of black and white and Hispanic, conservative, Orthodox, Reform, non-denominational, sign their name to saying that we too stand with the Jewish students on the college campus. Last night at the UCLA Hillel, 100 students or so had Shabbat dinner sponsored by the Los Angeles Board of Rabbis, by your clergy in this community at Sinai Temple, to make sure that those students didn't just have to walk by a liberation camp, but they had the opportunity to have a safe and sacred space to celebrate Shabbat on this holiday of Pesach. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., I don't want to see you here, but I want to see all of us, and I mean all of us who are in this building and who are watching online and will watch this after Shabbat online, in front of Royce Hall, to make sure that our voice and our presence is heard and seen, and our college students understand that they are not alone. And finally, on Thursday evening, I had another Seder. 2 wasn't enough. But this Seder was called the Freedom Seder, and it was put on by the Black Jewish Entertainment Alliance along with the Creative Community for Peace. It was amazing, to say the least. It was an Ezekiel moment that I have never experienced before. You see, the history of the Freedom Seder was in April 4th, 1969, on the one-year anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. Dr. Rabbi Arthur Waskow had the first Freedom Seder with 800 individuals in the basement of a Washington, D.C. church. I wish I could have brought the student who was the head of the Columbia University Apartheid Divestment Group in that 56-minute video. I wish I could have brought that student with me on Thursday, because he would have seen Jews who were white, and he would have seen Jews who were brown and Jews who were black. He would have seen Jews who were born in Egypt and Jews who were born in Cleveland, Ohio. He would have met Christians. He would have met Muslims, listening to each other's stories of liberation. And it was a very long Seder. And it wasn't about the words that we were reading in this interpretive Haggadah, but it was about the conversations that were happening at these tables. The questions we were asking each other were, how can we be freer next year? How, when you work in the entertainment industry, what are the things that you cannot say because of who you are? And one answer really struck me. Somebody in the entertainment industry said, often we pretend who we are because we have to tell people, or at least portray to people, that we have all the answers. But really, this person said, I wish we could admit that it's okay not to know. This week on Pesach, that's what we're doing. We're admitting that it really is okay not to know, because what is the Passover Seder? It's a celebration not of answers, but a celebration of allowing us to ask those questions. And so on Thursday night, when I left my third Seder of the week, I came out with these two prompts, these two ideas that I want to share with you. One, when we listen to the other, we actually do learn something. And two, when we learn something about each other, we can then show up when the other is needed. As we shared our freedom stories together, the best part was after we closed the Haggadah, and I saw people exchanging numbers, embracing for the first time. They walked in like this with their arms folded, but they walked out like this with their arms out towards each other. And there was a commitment to continued partnership and allyship. It is very easy today to see a world of dry bones, just like the Israelites saw in the vision of Ezekiel. But today, many of us are wearing a different kippah. We're wearing the red kippah of the Sinai Temple Men's Club. We have the youngest president ever of Sinai Temple Men's Club, Gabriel Tabarai, 22? 23 years old. To know that we have a future of young men like Gabriel who are ready to step up, not because only they need to, but they have watched people like their parents, Ebby, and your family in this community lead, not from behind, but from in front, so that one day we will not only see the back of God's tefillin, but one day we will be panim el panim. We will be face to face. Gabriel, you and the men's club and this board have reinvented the men's club in order to make our lives and Jewish lives relevant to what we need in today's Jewish world. Today is a celebration of who we are as a Sinai Temple Men's Club. It is a celebration of college students. It's a celebration of Judaism. And it's a celebration of who we are with our connection to the land of Israel. And so as we begin to find those Ezekiel moments, let us remember, when we feel scared outside, when we feel hopeless and out of control, we come right here. We come here and hopefully walk out a little bit stronger, a little more hopeful, knowing that the work we will do together will make this world a better world tomorrow. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach.